Hi, this is Baxter. Welcome to the second installment in the Baxter and Mark Chronicles. It was around 1982 when the Baxter and Mark show reemerged in Houston, Texas. Houston was a much larger city, population-wise, than Denver, which meant it was a bigger radio market, too, a nice career jump to a top 5 market at the time. As those crazy kids would say nowadays, sweet! We were excited to have a chance to pick up where we left off with furthering the on-air adventures of Baxter and Mark. Houston was to be a whole new experience for us in many ways. We noticed the zoning in the city was kind of strange. You'd see a gun shop next to a church, which was next to a poultry shop with live chickens. It took a little getting used to. When we first arrived, the radio station put us up in a nice hotel till we could find housing. They were shooting the film Terms of Endearment in Houston at the time, and the crew and some of the cast members were staying at the same hotel we were, which we thought was pretty cool. They would screen the daily shoots in one of the hotel conference rooms. I was a single dad at the time. On several occasions, my little boy, Jesse, was spending time out at the hotel playground playing with a little boy from the movie, and that turned out to be River Phoenix. We were always hoping to catch a glimpse of one of our idols, Jack Nicholson, there, but that just didn't happen. Soon, Mark and I each rented houses in the suburbs. Most everyone who worked in Houston lived outside the city. The daily commute could be murder, literally. The backups went on for miles every day, and we were hearing reports of people in that slow bumper-to-bumper daily crawl to the burbs in the hot Texas sun, sometimes getting in altercations on the freeway, and since it was Texas, a lot of them had rifle racks. Some drivers would get in road rage fights that ended in shootouts on the way home from work. Yeah, it was a new experience. We were getting to know our way around the city and building our new show in the mornings. We wanted to write and record some crazy songs to play on the radio, and one of the first ones we wrote was called Stuck on the Freeway. We later adapted the lyrics to fit Orlando when we moved there. We had no band in Houston, but that was one of our goals we had in mind. It was a way to put ourselves in front of people in a different way and also use the songs and antics both on stage and on the morning show. Plus, instead of just introducing a band at a show like many radio personalities do, we wanted to be the opening act. We were ready to start planning that part of our arsenal. Our program director in Houston, the guy that hired us and who will remain nameless here, it quickly became apparent to us that he was kind of nuts. Whenever we came into his office, he looked whacked out of his mind and usually seemed to be stashing something quickly in his desk drawer. And we were coming to him in the early days there for some kind of guidance for our new morning show, but it seemed whatever outlandish ideas we hit him with, he would just sort of half hear them and nod and say, "Okay, great, that's cool, guys. Okay, cool, see ya." Later, we would sometimes see him walking around the streets outside the station talking to himself. To quote one of Mark's favorite sayings, maybe he just wasn't getting enough zinc in his diet. We told our boss, the Space Cowboy, that we were going to start a morning show-based band and needed some new equipment. We told him that we wanted to personally approach one of the station's clients, a local music store, to work out a deal. We got the usual response, "Okay, guys, sounds cool, have fun, see ya." And soon we walked into Texas Tom's Music, introduced ourselves, and convinced the owner somehow to give us our pick of new guitars, amps, and accessories. We walked out with a bunch of great toys, promising the store they'd get lots of mentions on our show and that we would do special endorsement commercials for them. Of course, we both already had some instruments, but this was another attempt to just see what we could get away with, and it actually worked. It was like Christmas. We were giddy. We had all these great new toys. Now, one day, the station sent us over to Galveston Beach after our morning show to drive around on the beach in a station vehicle and schmooze with some of the people that we met out there, a little promotional opportunity. We were supposed to radio in on the two-way to the guy on the air back at the station and go on the air with him and say, "Hi, it's Baxter and Mark. We're on Galveston Beach right now, so come on up and say hi to us." Now, I remember there were these two cute young ladies in bikinis that came up to us, and we decided to, as we call it, pimp the DJ back at the station. when we'd radio back to set up our little broadcast, off the air we were talking to him, and we had these two girls come on the two-way and say to him, hey, it's so cool to be talking to you. We listen to you all the time and whatever. He thought it was a great thing that they were acting all starstruck to be talking to him. That was the setup. Next, we had put them up to telling him that they were in the station vehicle and they were naked. The two-way radio went silent, and we were trying very hard not to start laughing. But the two-way radio then went dead. He cut off communication with us. And at about that same time, we see some crazy guy running down the beach toward our truck, waving what looked like a big piece of plywood over his head and screaming something at us. So we figured this was one of these girls' boyfriend. So we quickly started up the truck and drove down about a quarter mile down the beach. We stopped there, got out, and a couple of minutes later, here he comes again in a stumbling, breathless run, waving this big piece of lumber and yelling something we couldn't make out. Okay, so this time we stayed put. And this crazed-looking guy runs up to us, panting, out of breath, red in the face, and says, hey, Baxter and Mark, I'm Electro. And at once we understood. This guy calling himself Electro had become a regular caller to our show who always wanted to warn the listeners about something he called horizontal flyback, which, according to him, would zap people if they got too close to the back of their TV sets. He was serious about it during these calls, but the calls were funny on the air, and he was just kind of goofy. This big piece of plywood he was running down the beach with was some sort of contraption he had built with knobs and wires mounted on a piece of wood, which he desperately wanted to show to us. Now, when we got back to the station with the truck, no one mentioned the prank that we had played on our co-worker over the two-way radio, but the air in that building was definitely frigid for a hot Houston afternoon. The Houston radio market was a big place. It included Galveston Beach, as well as the city of Houston and many other areas. It covered a lot of miles. So we decided it would be helpful if we had some sort of morning show vehicle to drive around. Now, the station was not going to supply us with one. As always, while working there, we were just kind of left to our own devices. So Mark and I came up with an innovative idea to turn it into sort of a backwards radio contest. Instead of the listeners winning a big prize from us, we thought it would be cool if they gave us the prize. We wanted to win somebody's car or truck. So we put it on the air as a contest. Give Baxter and Mark your car. And people actually started calling us on the air, telling us about their working, drivable vehicles that they were willing to just give us. Once again, crazy, but it actually worked, and it was fun radio and a great promotion with a lot of funny calls. People followed the evolution of it every morning for several weeks till we made the decision, and they seemed to be loving it. We ended up taking this guy's van, which was in good mechanical shape, but the paint job looked like it had been through a war zone. We then moved on to phase 2 of the stunt, which was to get some area businesses, an auto paint shop, interior shop, a car stereo place, to customize it for us in exchange for some on-air mentions, and we'd slap their logos on the van somewhere on the back. It seemed the world had gone crazy, and somehow we could pull off just about any loony thing we could think of, which was beautiful. The customization updates would supply us with several more weeks of material for the show because a lot of our listeners we knew had already invested their interest in our little project, and it would be entertaining to follow it along while we developed this van. So, we're looking at like 3 months' worth of ammo for our radio show. This all took place over the first year of doing the show in Houston. The station itself was a cash cow and an institution in Houston radio. The family that owned and operated it lived there, and we weren't hearing a lot of feedback from them about our antics, which kind of surprised us. I mean, couldn't they at least yell at us once in a while? Something? Anyway, I should also mention that this was a rock station, and we were a rock morning show, which traditionally targets primarily men 18 to 49 years of age. That's what we knew how to do. Our on-air escapades on the Baxter and Mark show had always proven pretty effective at hitting that target successfully. It was mostly guy-based humor, and when we first got there, we noticed 2 walls of photos in the studio. One featured photos of Houston area ladies, fans of the station with bikini shots and so on. And the other wall was all guys posing in Speedos or whatever. Now, there were some female air personalities on the station, so, we figured equal time, right? That was cool. That's what we assumed. Until one day, a station intern came into the studio off air to point out something to us, that Houston had the second largest gay community in the nation. Something that in our, heterosexual radio fervor had somehow escaped us. We were there to do our show the way we knew how to do our show. We were told that some of the employees and management were gay, according to this person. Now, we looked at those photo walls in a new way. This revelation was fine with us. We weren't gay bashing on the air or anything, and we didn't have a problem with anyone else's lifestyle choices. But it seemed that the buzz around the station was that our brand of radio fun was maybe not so accessible to those members of the staff and the audience. Honestly, this was something that we had never put a lot of thought into prior to this. We had always won by focusing on the traditional rock demo 18 to 49-year-old guy humor. Now, no one in the building came to us and said directly, hey, you guys are not gay-friendly enough on the air on your show. But that began to be the increasing vibe we were getting more openly from some members of the staff. Anyway, right or wrong, we didn't rethink our show or our approach to doing it. We didn't want to change our act. We did what we knew how to do. We just kind of kept doing the Baxter and Mark thing and talking about girls down at Galveston Beach, doing crazy phone pranks and parodies, doing what we knew how to do to traditionally win on a rock morning show. We kept up our crazy stunts like taking people's cars or pranking people on the phone. We just wanted to keep on playing rock music and keep on having fun. And if some people didn't get us or didn't like us for some reason, we figured we could live with that. One day, our crazy, mostly distant, zoned-out program director was let go, and we were not long behind him out the door. Even though the ratings were pretty good, we were told that it just wasn't going to work out. We were quickly replaced by a show with what you could call a more alternative lifestyle appeal, I guess. The guy we originally replaced when we got the job there, a guy who was never let go during our tenure and who continued to come to the station every day, where it seemed to us that he really didn't have an actual job there anymore. He was just there every day, and nobody could tell us what he did. He moved back onto the morning show after they canned us. Reverse discrimination? Well, maybe, but it was all just too bizarre for us to get upset over. Something we had never encountered. It was the early 80s, and many people with alternative lifestyles were still keeping it kind of quiet. So finding ourselves caught up in a situation like this was really, it just caught us off guard. But the station was their sandbox, and they could play any way they wanted to. Maybe the management finally just decided they hated what we were doing and showed us the door. But we gave back the guitars and equipment and the van, took our severance checks, and hung around Houston for a little while longer. Spent most of our time sleeping in, eating Mexican food, drinking, playing asteroids, and, of course, putting feelers out for a new job. I remember one evening during this period, Mark and I were coming out of a Mexican restaurant. We both climbed onto my motorcycle to leave. I was driving. And before I could start it up, it just fell over with us on board onto its side, and the two of us fell with it onto the pavement and just laughed so hysterically that we couldn't get up. It was so, we weren't angry during this period. It was just like ridiculous. So I got back in touch with my old PD from Tampa, Rad, who I had mentioned in an earlier chapter. He was now program director of a rock station in Orlando, which needed a morning show. The station was WDIZ. But that's the next chapter in the Baxter and Mark Chronicles. Now, let me invite you to click a link below called Stuck on the Freeway. It's a video of the song we wrote in Houston, which was also to become a future staple of Orlando's Baxter and Mark Band.